What happens when Hollywood's wildest action star sits across from one of America's most beloved talk show hosts, only for the conversation to unravel into one of the most shocking clashes daytime television has ever seen? The Jennifer Hudson show had built a reputation for warmth, compassion, and authenticity. But on this day, viewers around the world would witness something far different. What began as a friendly, harmless interview with Jason Momoa quickly spiraled into a storm of tension, ego, and unfiltered emotions, culminating in a dramatic breakdown that no one in the studio audience could have predicted. Stay tuned, because this isn't just another celebrity chat. This is the day the King of Atlantis met his match. The studio of the Jennifer Hudson show buzzed with anticipation. Producers moved briskly around the set, their headsets buzzing with last-minute instructions. The audience, a lively mix of daytime fans and curious spectators, sat ready with applause signs glowing in their hands. A warmth always hung in the air on Jennifer's stage. But today, something felt slightly different, something heavier. Jennifer Hudson emerged from backstage to her signature applause, dazzling in a vibrant emerald dress that shimmered under the studio lights. She smiled wide, waving to the audience, her energy filling the space. "Welcome back, everybody," Jennifer beamed, her rich voice carrying across the studio. "Today, we have a very, very special guest. He has been at the center of the biggest blockbusters in the world. He's an activist, a father, and a force of nature who has never been afraid to break the mold. Please welcome Jason Momoa." The audience clapped and cheered, though the energy was polite rather than explosive. Jason strode onto the stage, his towering frame imposing, his chin held high. He offered a faint smirk at the applause, though his expression never fully softened behind his sunglasses, which he slowly removed. Jennifer rose to greet him with open arms. "Jason, welcome. Thank you for joining us." "Thanks, Jennifer," Jason replied, his voice deep and rumbling, but measured. "Good to be here." The two settled into their seats, Jennifer's bright smile filling the screen while Jason adjusted his leather jacket with practiced nonchalance. The camera zoomed in as Jennifer began with her trademark warmth. "So," Jennifer said, leaning forward just slightly, "how has it been adjusting to life lately? I know you've been traveling everywhere, from shooting in the freezing north to being back here in the Hollywood spotlight." Jason's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, the smirk thinning, his brows lifting ever so slightly. He let out a short, rough laugh. "Is that your way of saying I don't belong in civilization?" The audience chuckled awkwardly, unsure if it was a joke or... Jennifer blinked, her smile tightening but still present. No, not at all. I just meant it's a big shift in pace, right? From the wild to the studio." Jason crossed one heavy boot over the other, his tone now cool. "Life is a shift no matter where you go. I don't really define myself by my location. If others choose to define me by whether I fit into a suit or a studio, that says more about them than me." Jennifer nodded carefully, maintaining her composure. "I hear you. I just know a lot of our viewers were curious about how that balance feels for you personally." "Personally," Jason repeated, tilting his head. "Personally, I adapt just fine. I don't spend my life worrying about what other people think or how much approval I'm getting from the suits. That's exhausting. Some of us just do the work." The tension was faint but unmistakable now. Jennifer smoothed the fabric of her dress, glanced at the camera, and pressed on. "Well, Jason, speaking of personal life, people always want to know about you and your family. How is life as a dad? How are you balancing the massive fame with keeping things grounded?" The audience leaned forward, eager for the response. Jason's eyes flicked to Jennifer, narrowing slightly. "Life is great," he said briskly, "but I find it fascinating how people cling to every rumor and whisper about my private life. My family and I don't need to defend our happiness to magazines or to anyone. Frankly, Jennifer, I'm surprised you'd even ask about that. Don't you think the gossip has been beaten to death already?" The studio air cooled a little more. Jennifer's smile faltered for half a second before recovering. She chuckled lightly, trying to diffuse the mood. "I didn't mean it as gossip, Jason. Our audience just loves to hear about the man behind the muscles, that's all." Jason leaned back, his posture rigid. "Well, then you can tell them we're perfectly fine, and they don't need to read into every baseless headline." A faint murmur rippled through the audience, sensing Jason's edge. Jennifer inhaled deeply, maintaining her gracious tone. Fair enough, she said softly. I respect that. She shuffled her cards, searching for safer ground. Now, let's talk about your career. You've had such an interesting journey from starting out in modeling to becoming a superhero, and now all the environmental work you're doing. Looking back, what do you miss most about the early days, before the blockbusters? For the first time, Jason's lips curled into a dry smile. I don't miss anything about it. That was a chapter, a hustle. But honestly, Jennifer, when people ask that, it always feels like they're trying to remind me of a time before my voice really mattered. Modeling was fine, but my impact now is far greater. Jennifer blinked, taken aback by the bluntness. She recovered quickly, laughing gently. I didn't mean to minimize what you're doing now. I just know fans loved your early work. Fans love a lot of things, Jason replied curtly. That doesn't mean I need to keep reliving them. I've outgrown that part of my life. The air thickened again. Jennifer's warmth was steady, but the edges of her patience were showing. She pressed forward cautiously. Okay, then let's talk about your environmental activism. What kind of legacy are you hoping to build? Jason's smile sharpened, his tone lofty. Legacy is about more than recycling plastic or smiling for cameras. It's about redefining how we live, and I think a lot of people, corporations, media, even entire industries are uncomfortable with me because I don't play by their outdated rules. Jennifer opened her mouth, but Jason kept going. And if some people can't handle that, that's not my problem. That's theirs. The audience exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't the fun, high-energy Jason interview they'd expected. Jennifer shifted in her chair, nodding but clearly recalibrating. Well, she said with a laugh that carried a trace of steel, you certainly don't hold back, do you? Jason smirked, tilting his chin upward. Why should I? The camera panned across the audience, capturing their stunned silence. Somewhere in the control room, a producer mouthed silently, "This is about to get interesting." And indeed, it was only the beginning. The applause sign flickered again as the show rolled back from a short commercial break. But the audience's energy had shifted. They were no longer relaxed. They were leaning forward in their seats, tense, waiting to see what might happen next. Jennifer Hudson's radiant smile held steady as the camera zoomed in, but her eyes carried a flicker of determination. She had interviewed countless celebrities, politicians, and stars, but Jason Momoa was presenting a new challenge. Welcome back, Jennifer said warmly. We're here with Jason Momoa, global superstar, entrepreneur, and advocate for the planet. Jason, thank you again for being here. Jason crossed his massive arms, his posture regal, his chin tilted upward as if addressing the room from a throne. Of course, he said, it's important to give people the opportunity to hear the truth unfiltered. Jennifer nodded, her smile intact. Well, let's talk about something simple. You've been involved in some huge franchises lately. How has it felt dealing with the studio system after having so much creative freedom in your own projects? It was a warm, neutral question, but Jason's face stiffened instantly. Is that your way of implying I'm difficult to work with? He shot back, his tone sharp. The audience gasped softly. Jennifer blinked, caught off guard but quickly recovered. Not at all, she said smoothly. I was just asking about the contrast. A lot of people are curious about how, Jason interrupted, his voice rising slightly. Because I've heard that before, people making little digs suggesting I clash with studios because I can't follow orders. The truth is, Jennifer, I fight for the integrity of the art. That's not being difficult. It's being passionate. Jennifer held her smile, though it now felt tighter at the edges. Fair enough, she said gently. I think many people admire your passion. The audience clapped politely, but the mood was uneasy. Jennifer pressed on, carefully pivoting. And how's the dynamic with the other cast members? People always want to know, what's it like working with such a big ensemble? Jason's laugh was cold. You mean the rumors? The endless speculation about who hates who? Honestly, Jennifer, I would have expected you, of all people, not to pander to clickbait. My cast and I are fine, more than fine. We're a tribe, and unlike most people speculating about us, we actually know the truth. Jennifer's smile faltered for the first time. I wasn't asking about gossip, Jason, she said softly. though there was a firmness beneath her voice. I was asking about your experience. That's something only you can share. Jason leaned back, flexing his hands. Well, my experience is private. Not everything needs to be dissected just because people think they're entitled to my time. The audience shifted in their seats. A faint murmur spread through the studio. Jennifer drew a slow breath, centering herself. All right, she said with a gentle nod. Let's move to another topic. A lot of viewers admire the way you've spoken openly about your struggles breaking into the industry. What do you feel you've learned since becoming a household name? For a moment, Jason's jaw tightened. His eyes flashed as though the very mention of the struggle irritated him. What I've learned, he said, his voice dripping with disdain, is that fame and box office numbers are meaningless if they don't serve a purpose. People love to act like I should be grateful for just being allowed in the room. But the truth is, I outgrew the room. Their world is small. I've moved on. Perhaps everyone else should, too. A hush fell over the studio, Jennifer's hands clasped in her lap, her poise unbroken, but her patience fraying. Some might say, Jennifer began slowly, that being part of those big franchises gave you a platform that helped amplify your message. Do you feel any gratitude for that? Gratitude? Jason cut in sharply, his eyes narrowing. Why should I be grateful for being used to sell toys, for being scrutinized endlessly? Gratitude is a weapon people use when they want you to stay quiet and compliant. I've built my own empire now. I don't owe them anything. The audience gasped again, some whispering to each other. Jennifer's calm facade cracked slightly. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing just a bit. All right, she said, her voice firmer. Let's pivot again. There's been some chatter about your upcoming contract negotiations. Some reports suggested you asked for significantly higher pay for the next sequel. Is there any truth to that? Jason's head snapped toward her, his tone laced with venom. Excuse me, do you really think I sit around discussing my bank account with talk show hosts? The studios recognize my value. If people want to frame knowing your worth as greed, that's their problem, not mine. Frankly, Jennifer, I'd expect better from you than repeating baseless rumors. Jennifer inhaled sharply. Her smile remained, but her voice carried an unmistakable steel. I wasn't quoting tabloids, Jason. I was asking you directly, giving you the chance to set the record straight. Jason scoffed audibly, leaning back in his chair. The record is that I don't owe anyone an explanation for how I negotiate my worth, least of all this audience. The room went silent. For the first time in her career as a host, Jennifer Hudson's warmth was overshadowed by something harder, something resolute. She adjusted her posture, the smile fading from her lips. Well, she said slowly, that's certainly one way to put it. The audience erupted into uneasy laughter, sensing the battle lines being drawn. Jason's jaw was set, his eyes daring Jennifer to push further, and Jennifer, after years of patience and grace, looked like she just might. The studio lights glared a little brighter, as if the very room sensed the tension building. Jason Momoa sat with his arms folded tightly across his massive chest, his eyes hard, his lips pressed in a thin line. Jennifer Hudson, meanwhile, leaned forward slightly, her hands clasped together, her once radiant smile fading into something calmer, steadier, like a singer preparing to hit a note that could shatter glass. All right, Jason, Jennifer said, her tone still measured but tinged with steel. Let's take a step back. People have watched your journey from the islands to Hollywood's biggest stages. They've heard your story in documentaries, interviews, magazines, but some feel like the narrative keeps shifting. What would you say to those who think you've changed your story over time? The audience leaned in, waiting for Jason's reply. Jason tilted his head, his voice cool and dismissive. I'd say those people are too invested in dissecting me instead of looking at the bigger picture. I don't owe anyone consistency when my lived experience has been complex. If people want a neat little story, maybe they should watch a comic book movie instead of my life. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience. Jennifer raised her eyebrows, her patience thinning. Fair enough, she said, her voice even. But surely you understand why people are confused. You've said one thing in one interview, then another thing later. Jason cut her off sharply, his eyes flashing. Oh, so now you're accusing me of lying. Jennifer's lips pressed into a firm line. I didn't say lying, I said confused. And you're sitting here on my show, so I think it's fair to ask what's real and what isn't. For the first time, the cool detachment drained entirely from Jason's face. He leaned forward, his voice sharp. Jennifer, let me explain something. When you've lived under constant attack by the press, by the studios, by people who will twist anything you say, you learn that the truth isn't about timelines or details. It's about survival. And if people can't understand that, that's on them. Jennifer held her ground, her posture tightening. I hear you, but let me tell you something too. When you ask people to believe you, when you build a brand around your authenticity, they're going to ask questions. That's not an attack, Jason. That's accountability. The audience broke into spontaneous applause. Jason's jaw tightened. He sat back in his chair, his voice cold. Accountability. You want to talk about accountability? How about the accountability of a media machine that profits off my image? How about the accountability of people who sit here pretending to care while really just chasing ratings? Jennifer's patience cracked. She straightened, her voice dropping low, her words sharp but calm. With all due respect, Jason, don't come on my show and accuse me of chasing ratings. I built this show to uplift people, to give them space to share their truth. If you can't handle being asked direct questions, maybe interviews aren't for you. The studio erupted in cheers and applause. Jason's eyes widened, his expression darkening into fury. He shook his head, laughing out bitterly. Oh, I see how it is. The applause lines, the gotcha moment. Congratulations, Jennifer. You've joined the long list of people who think they can reduce me to a soundbite. Jennifer leaned in, her voice steady, but now carrying unmistakable bite. No one's reducing you, Jason. You're doing that to yourself. Every time someone asks you a question, you snap back. Every time someone tries to connect, you turn it into an attack. That's not strength. That's arrogance. The audience gasped, several clapping, while others whispered in shock. Jason's composure cracked visibly, his large hands gripping the armrest of his chair. Arrogance? He hissed. You think standing up for myself is arrogance? No, Jennifer. What's arrogant is pretending you understand my life when you've never carried the weight of it. Jennifer's eyes didn't waver. And what's arrogant, she fired back, is believing that because you landed a blockbuster role, you're above being asked questions like everyone else. The words hit like a thunderclap. Jason's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes glistened, not with humility, but with anger that had no outlet. The audience was dead silent now, the tension suffocating. Jennifer leaned back, her arms folding across her emerald dress, her voice calm but unyielding. You wanted a platform, Jason. Well, this is what it looks like when you're asked to actually use it. The truth is, you can't demand respect and then push people away when they ask for clarity. You can't have it both ways. The silence stretched on. Jason shifted in his seat, visibly shaken, but unwilling to admit defeat. He wiped his nose quickly with the back of his hand, pretending it was nothing. And for the first time that afternoon, Jennifer Hudson wasn't just the host of a talk show. She was the voice of a crowd tired of excuses. The audience erupted into thunderous applause. Jason looked away, his jaw clenched, his hands trembling slightly as he struggled to keep control. The studio air was heavy, thick with tension that felt more like a boxing ring than a talk show. Jason Momoa sat rigid in his chair, his arms crossed like armor, his jaw clenched so tightly it seemed to ache. Across from him, Jennifer Hudson no longer wore the effortless warmth that had made her show a household staple. Instead, her expression had hardened into one of cool defiance, the look of a woman who had been pushed past her breaking point. The audience was silent, sensing that something extraordinary, maybe even dangerous, was about to unfold. Jennifer took a deep breath, her voice low and firm. You know, Jason, I've tried. I've given you space to share your story. I've respected your process where I could. But every question I ask, you twist into an insult. Every opportunity to connect, you turn into an attack. So let's stop pretending. Jason blinked, his lips parting in disbelief. Chanel, pretending? Are you seriously suggesting that my answers aren't valid just because you don't like them? Jennifer leaned forward, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. No, Jason, I'm suggesting that your answers are performances, carefully crafted, designed to make you look like the rebel hero in every single scenario. You talk about being real, but everything you've said today drips with contempt for the press, for the audience, even for me sitting right here. Gasps rippled through the studio. Jason's face flushed darker. He opened his mouth to speak, but Jennifer didn't give him the chance. You want the truth? Jennifer continued, her eyes blazing. Here it is. You're not a savior. You're not a lone wolf. You're not the voice of the earth. You are someone who got cast in a franchise and thought the world would bow at your feet. And when they asked questions instead, you weaponized your persona and called it integrity. The audience audibly gasped. Jason's composure cracked. He shifted forward in his chair, his eyes intense, his lips trembling with rage. How dare you, he rumbled, his voice shaking the floorboards. Jennifer pressed on, relentless now. You keep saying you've moved on, but every word out of your mouth drags the industry into it. You say you want to be left alone, but you cash massive checks to put your face on every screen in the world. And let's be real, Jason, the only reason you sit well in this audience's favor is because of that trident. Without the franchise, without that suit, you'd just be another actor with a resume nobody remembered. The words landed like bombs. Jason's defenses shattered in an instant. The anger in his eyes turned to shock. He shook his head furiously as if trying to physically shake off the accusation. You don't know me, he shot back, his voice breaking into a growl. You don't know what I've sacrificed. Jennifer's voice softened, but the steel remained. You're right, I don't know every detail of your life, but I know patterns, and what I see is someone desperate to be worshipped, furious that the world won't play along. You can't have it both ways, Jason. You can't demand glory while treating everyone around you like they're beneath you. The audience erupted into applause. Jason's massive shoulders heaved as he tried to control his breathing. He fumbled with his microphone, unclipping it with trembling, aggressive hands. This was a mistake, he muttered, his voice low but carried by the studio mics. I don't need to sit here and be insulted. He stood abruptly, kicking his chair back as he grabbed his sunglasses. The studio cameras followed him as he stormed toward the side of the stage, his heavy boots thudding against the floor. Audience members gasped, phones out, recording every second of the meltdown. Jennifer Hudson remained seated, her posture proud, her emerald dress glowing under the lights. She didn't chase after Jason. She didn't soften her words. Instead, she turned to the audience, her voice steady, professional, but touched with disappointment. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, exhaling, I want to apologize to you. You came here expecting an honest conversation, and instead you watched someone walk away the moment accountability entered the room. That's not what this show is about. This show is about truth, about connection, about facing the hard questions, even when it's uncomfortable. The audience thundered with applause, some rising to their feet in support. Jennifer glanced toward the camera, her eyes calm but resolute. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with real honesty. The lights dimmed as the band played the transition music. The cameras cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Jason Momoa had left in a rage. Jennifer Hudson had delivered the sharpest takedown of her career. And daytime television had just changed forever. And that's how it ended. An interview that went from warm introductions to a meltdown nobody saw coming. What do you think? Was Jennifer right to call Jason out? Or did things go too far? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next explosive update.